Hello Sword fam, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Brittany. Today I'm going to be talking about my performance at this year's SoCal Swordfight in the Tier A Longsword cutting category. I'm going to preface this by explaining what Tier A actually means in this context. This year they had Tier C for beginners, Tier B for intermediate cutters, and Tier A for advanced cutters. According to SoCal Swordfight's criteria, I ended up seeding into the Tier A category. This is because I have currently a total of 4 medals in an open or intermediate category. I have 1 silver medal and 3 bronze medals. For that reason, they felt that I was an advanced level competitor and should have been tiered into A, which I am flattered and humbled and frightened at the same time. I haven't yet gotten my gold medal in an intermediate level, so being at the top of Tier B gives me a really good chance at winning a medal. But moving up into Tier A meant that I'm now at the bottom of this new tier. So I was really nervous about going and cutting into this advanced level because I knew I'm at the bottom of the pack of all these other more experienced competitors. So my personal goals weren't to win or to medal. I knew that was unachievable and I would just be setting myself up for disappointment. And so instead, my goals were simply to just do better this time than I did last time. Without further delay, let's get right into the performance review. Round 1 consisted of 2 different feats. The first feat is the Avenger, using a single tatami mat on a 45-degree angle, and we were expected to complete a total of 5 cuts. That would be the Krump Hau from the right and the left, the Shield Hau from the right and the left, and a Scheidel Hau just on its own. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any footage of the previous times that I have done this feat, but I can say that every time I've done it, I have failed miserably. So I did not have super high expectations going into the first round trying to perform this. I just wanted to see if I could do it. My plan going into this was to start with cuts that I felt I was strongest at, which I had thought was my Scheidel Hau, followed by my Shield Haus, and then I had a plan for my Krumps, but I really didn't feel super confident, so I was going to save them for last and hope for the best. In the foreground, you can see the Avenger stand. It's just a standard like tatami stand, but it has that brace going down the side, and that's actually where they put the mat in. So you can see them putting that there, and it puts the mat on a 45-degree angle. Further back towards the background, you can see another more traditional stand, and that's for the second feat in this first round, which I'll talk about a little bit later. You'll also notice on the floor underneath both stands, there is a mat, and on that mat there are 2 semicircles, a green and a yellow. Those are landing zones. Landing zones factor into your score. A piece of tatami that is cut and falls within the green zone is considered a good cut and will get full points. Anything that falls within the yellow zone is considered a somewhat successful cut, but you lose 80% of your score. Anything beyond that yellow line or outside of the yellow zone is a complete fail of the cut, regardless of the quality of the cut itself. Landing zones are not as harshly penalized in the lower tiers, but in Tier A, it can make or break your score entirely. And as you will see, this is something that really did affect me pretty greatly throughout the tournament, but again, this is just at a whole new level and it presents another challenge. Immediately in front of these 2 stands, you'll see a table. Sean Franklin is sitting there, and when RJ's done his sweeping and wiping of the floor, he will also sit there with Sean, and the 2 of them are going to be the judges for this tournament. After I perform each cut, Sean will hold up a card. The card will be either green, yellow, or red, and that will indicate to me what they judge to be the quality of my cut. A green means good, a yellow is in between, and a red is a fail. I don't want red cards. For this first round, I need to indicate what cut I'm doing, so here I'm telling RJ I'm going to start with my Scheidel Hau. And while the cut is very good, I receive a small penalty because I actually did not step. I totally forgot a step was required for that cut. I didn't do it, but otherwise it was technically very good, and it still just barely landed within the green. So a minor deduction there. The next cut that I attempt is the shield how from the right side. I've done this a ton of times. I was feeling really confident about it, and we're allowed to demonstrate the cut that we intend to do. And so RJ gives me the okay. I can go ahead and do that one for my next cut. Like I said, I felt really confident about this cut. I've done it before, so I thought I was in a really good spot, starting off nice and strong. So here we go. Yeah, I just did that. I completely misjudged my targeting, and while that probably would have gone through the mat successfully, I missed, and so that was a failed cut. I was mortified, to say the least. But no time to waste. On to the next one. It's Tier A after all. So now I'm going to attempt the shield how, but from my left side this time. So again, I have to demonstrate it first for RJ, and he's going to give me a yes or no. Says it's fine, not a big deal. I'd never tried this before on a tatami mat, so I was nervous, but I kind of had a good concept that if I had enough rotation and tip speed, I'd be fine. And I was. I also managed to make it land just barely in the green, even though it bounced and rolled away. They will count it officially from where the mat actually makes contact on the floor. So that one, I got full points for, and I was very proud. I can't be too excited though. My first cut had a deduction, my second cut was a fail, and one successful cut does not a champion make. So I still have to do 2 more cuts, the krump how from the right and the left. You'll notice my orientation towards the mat has changed. That is because it's a requirement of the tournament, and now I have to approach from the mat head on. I'm showing RJ what I intend to do for my cut, which is going to be the krump from the right, and he's giving me his idea on the angle and if it's going to be sufficient for the requirements of this tournament. This was one of those cuts that I have performed many times in sparring, but I've never been able to do it successfully on a tatami mat, and I think part of my issue going into this was having not done it on tatami and doing it only to the head and hands of like a partner had actually kind of negated a lot of the power I was able to generate for this cut, and I think that was a big factor here. As you can see, I just kind of hit it and I don't have any follow through in my cut. I do think that that is a holdover from some of my sparring. Definitely something I can work on. This needs a lot more rotation. So now again, I'm going to do this and attempt it from the left side, and I felt even less confident about that. Overall, it's a very difficult cut, and it's just one of those things. I can see how slow I am, how little like tip speed I have. I do think that was just an overall kind of problem from holdovers in sparring and not enough practice in cutting. The second feat for round 1 is called close cuts or counter rotation. I have done a very similar feat at the Helsinki Longsword Open cutting tournament last year, but this has been slightly tweaked a little bit, but both of these feats were made up by Sean Franklin, so I knew what he was looking for, but I also knew how badly I struggled with this at HLO. If you're curious to see how that went for me back in Helsinki, I will link the video below in the description, and you can see how in the final round for finals to place for a medal, that is one of the feats that really destroyed me. Anyway, the close cuts or the counter rotation required a step backwards intentionally, but also to cut over your lead leg, which limits the amount of hip rotation that you can use for your cut. So this is extremely suboptimal, very difficult to do, and I wasn't holding my breath for it. I was required to do a total of 6 cuts, a Zwerchhau from either side, an Oberhau from either side, and an Unterhau from either side. I could do it in any order I wanted, so here I'm actually going to start with a descending Zwerchhau from my right, which is a pretty strong cut for me traditionally.
but I wasn't sure if I could pull it off with the back step and counter rotation. But I manage, and it's not so bad. I do get a minor deduction. You see Sean's yellow card because the piece fell just at the yellow line. He was being pretty gracious there, so I'll take it. We'll take another quick look. I'm checking to make sure my foot is where it needs to be, which is right against the stand, and then I'm choosing to do a descending Zwerchau to give myself the best chance of success. You can see it land just on the yellow marker, and based on the score, you can see that I only get 2 points for my cut overall. So that yellow landing zone deduction is huge, no matter how good the cut is. Now I'm feeling pretty good after that first cut, so I'm going to attempt a descending Zwerchau now from the left. And this is another one that I'm confident in, but I know with that stepping back, it can be pretty dangerous. So let's see how it goes. And that is perfect. It falls right in the green, and I'm really, really happy with it. I just managed to do what I thought would be the 2 hardest cuts in this entire feat without any issue. Now I had to just do my Oberhaus, which should be the easiest cuts of the whole entire tournament. And that one wasn't so bad, but now I was starting to get psyched out because it wasn't perfect. You can see some of the flaws there, and it doesn't get the landing zone correct. So I only get 2 points for that cut, which was a letdown. But that's okay. Now I just need to do my left Oberhau, another one that's simple, I know how to do it, and I'm getting a little bit psyched out because how silly would that be if I fail? You can see I get a little nervous. I tell myself it's fine, relax. And I don't relax, obviously. Somehow I managed to fail that cut. Something that I've been able to do literally every single time. But that counter rotation gets a little bit tricky. Now I do have the option to respike my mat. RJ asks if I want to fix it and if I want to straighten it out, and I said no. This is a tactical choice for me. The reason being is that if I mess up this Unterhau from the right, it's going to go flying, and I know that. So I want to save my respike for the higher likelihood that it is going to fly away and need a respike. So here I am trying to tell everybody, watch out over there. I'm not confident. It's not an ideal situation, but I take the chance anyway. And it did exactly what I thought, but I wasn't going to waste my respike on straightening that as opposed to seeing if I could make it work here. I know my Unterhau from my left side is much stronger than that on my right side, so I wanted to make sure I at least had the chance with an optimally spiked and situated mat before I attempted the cut from my left side. So this is the last cut that I'm going to be able to attempt in this feat, and traditionally I'm very, very confident in this cut, but you can see I just miss it. And you'll have to take another look at that close up to see why. You can see as I prepare for this cut, I start to take a huge step back, further than I even needed to. By stepping back, I shorten my cut, and the tip of my sword just barely pulls out before I finish the cut. And that's enough for me to miss it by just a little bit, and overall, it is a fail. Now on paper, it looks like I did very poorly, and I came in 13th out of 14th overall in this tournament. So technically speaking, I did not do very well. However, keeping in mind that this is, a tier that I'm sort of new to, and that everybody else there is way better than me, I was really, really proud of myself. And the fact that I had struggled with both the Avenger and the counter rotation feat in the past, seeing that I actually had some success for both of those feats this time was notable improvement on my part. For that reason, I am really, really happy with my performance overall. I feel ready to keep practicing. I have new stuff to work on, and I really hope that the next cutting tournament I get to compete in, I'm going to do even better on a personal level. And maybe one day, I will get that gold medal. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching. And of course, a very special thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon.